Welcome to AVoice for Creators. I'm your host, Daniel Norton. Today I want to talk about pushing the needle forward, as it would be, and the most important thing for that, which is consistency. And I've talked about this a lot. I feel like these things come back in circles because there's only one answer, right, when it comes down to it. And the thing is, you got to practice, you got to work on things, you got to keep going. And one of the things that I find happens a lot in the arts and in business and in many things is that people get a certain distance and then they stop. Maybe because it's not going as quick as they want. Maybe because they don't feel like they're making the progress. Maybe they think it'll never happen. Maybe just other things pop up, the new shiny thing to chase. But if we want to actually find true success in something, we've got to work at it. This doesn't mean that you have to work 10,000 hours of something before you see any success. It just means that you're going to have to just keep going, even in the times where it's not ideal. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what I do and what are some of the ideas here, kind of broadly, and I'd love to get this conversation going. You can join the conversation on the Discord server, link in the show notes, and you can also send me a message following the link in the show notes as well to the Anchor page if you want to send a voice message. So what I want to talk about here is what I'm going to call waypoints. So I think that when we set goals, right? So if you're going to get into goal setting and you say, okay, well, my goal is to, let's just do social media because people understand that. My goal is I am on Instagram and I have 1,000 followers. My goal is to get to 5,000 followers in 6 months. And I have these plans to do it. Well, what you want to do is set yourself some waypoints. Now, and the reason why I say waypoints and not partial goals or smaller goals or chunks, whatever other people call them, is because a waypoint is something in my mind like, imagine yourself running a marathon or any kind of race. I don't imagine myself doing that very often, but anyways, when you're kind of running this marathon, you at points, you're thirsty, you're tired, you're feeling down, and you see that person standing on the side holding that cup of Gatorade or water or whatever out to you, and you run up and you grab that cup of Gatorade and you drink it as you run and you keep going. It gives you the energy to keep going. These are your waypoints. I think sometimes when people set small goals that build up to big goals, there's too much of a celebration when they reach it. And in a way, because you have that kind of climax, you end up being more likely to stop there, right? If you say, okay, my goal is, instead of saying 5,000, we're going to say, I'm just going to say 1,000 more this month or whatever. When you reach that first 1,000, you might find it was a lot of work. It was exhausting. And you might say, well, you know what? I got to the 2,000. So that's pretty good. I'm happy there. But you don't want to give yourself that chance to stop. You want to keep your focus in the future. Now, you also have to be reasonable about what you set for a goal. This is another thing that makes people fail at, completing tasks, is that they set their goal too high. You've got to look at something and say, let's say you're watching your numbers and you're like, I started this Instagram. I've got 1,000 followers. I've been gaining about 100 followers a month. So if I'm going to, go at this rate, can I somehow, but I've been doing nothing to do that. Like, I post just once in a while. I don't use other social media to push it. I don't really tell people about it. So maybe the 5,000 goal I said at the beginning is going to be too high because you're looking at it now and you're going, you know what? I'm only getting 100 a month now. In 6 months, I'll probably only have 1,600. But what if I can double that? Doubling it is pretty radical, but at the same time, it's possible since you haven't been doing anything, right? So let's say instead of saying, okay, my goal is to get to X number of followers in 6 months, my goal is to get to X number of followers per month in 6 months. Then before you put a little period on the end of that sentence, shoot forward another 6 months and see if you actually achieve that goal. Where would you be followers wise? And set that as your goal number. Now in a year, I'm going to have, whatever it ends up being, 5,000. Let's just say that it works out to that, even though it doesn't. Now that's my goal because now it's reasonable. It's something I can actually do. I have a waypoint, which is the 200 a month that I'm going to get to about halfway point. That's going to make me super excited. If I'm a few short or a few more, that's excellent, right? But I'm going to keep growing and keep pushing. And maybe your goal will shift. Maybe you'll blow through that first goal. And when you do, you can take that time again to celebrate. But instead, what I would recommend doing is if you see yourself going, okay, I'm going to go to 200 a month, by 6 months, and in 2 months you're there. Well, you don't go, yeah, I'm there, I'm good. No. When you see yourself go to like 150 after a month, you go, you know what, I'm going to be able to go even further. Let's go 300. And Give yourself that further step. Don't always do that. You have to have a final goal so that you don't feel like you're always just chasing around in circles. And when I say final goal, I mean one that you can hit the ground, reevaluate everything you're doing, decide how important it is. Did it make a change in your life? Was it important for you? But the more goals that you achieve, the more goals you will achieve because, and I've talked about this before, there's a whole mindset around being successful. And when you are successful, it's easier to have more success. So you want to set yourself up so that you can actually succeed and not set goals that are through the roof, that seem impossible, just so you can be like, that's right, I did it, if you're one of the few people that can actually push and do that. So think about what your goals are. And also, maybe this is another podcast, but I'll tap on it here a little bit and we'll talk about it in the future if I get some good response. But why do you want 5,000 followers? You need to think about what you actually think that will do for you. And then do a little bit of, you don't go crazy, but do a little bit of research to make sure you're right. Like if you think, oh, at 5,000 followers, I'm going to be able to, make X amount of dollars because I can get a sponsor. Okay, but look around at people that have 5,000 followers and make sure that they do have sponsors. Then look at some of these sponsors and see what those sponsors are paying. Maybe they're just giving those people free product for that and they're not making any money, You need to get an idea of what this goal will actually be so that when you get there, you're not disappointed, right? You get to 5,000, you're thinking, great, now I'm going to get sponsors. And then that first, sponsor reaches out and they're just like, oh yeah, we'll give you, free power bars. If you talk about them on your channel, it's like, well, okay, like, that doesn't do anything for me. You're thinking. So really what we want to do is think about what our goal is, but think about why we want to make that goal. What will we do when we do? If your goal is to double your income, why? Why do you want to double your income? So you can retire early, so that you can have a better car, so you can travel, so you can buy better gear, so you can just like go to any restaurant you want and just throw down. Why is it that you want that? And don't make it an abstract thing, just like, I just want more, because more of what you got isn't always better, right? What you want to do is figure out what it is that you want and why you're doing it. And that will really help you keep going. I know that some of this stuff kind of sounds cheesy, but it works. Having that goal in your mind, knowing, hey, if I can do this, if I get this job, I'll be able to buy that camera that I've always wanted. And then that'll make you go out there and try to get that job because you want that camera and that's how you're going to get it. So that's basically it. You want to keep going. You can always think about, of course, this is, you can see me on Spotify yet, but this is an audio medium, so I'm not going to show you any kind of graphic, but I think we've all seen that poster or cartoon where it's like there's a miner and they're digging, and you can see they've got this long tunnel, and they're turned away from the wall that they were digging at, and they're leaving. They're just like, whoa, that was a waste of time. And then, like, if they just went a little bit further on the other side, there's a bunch of gold, right? That's it, right? That's it for so many people. We don't go far enough because we get discouraged, and we get discouraged because we don't give ourselves waypoints, and we get discouraged because we don't give ourselves goals that are reasonable. If you blow through your goals because they were too easy, fine, just make new goals. But if you set something that's too far in advance, also, it was traditional thinking that like you should do like 5-year goals, 10 years goals. I don't really believe those things because I am a much different person now than I was 10 years ago. And what I want now is much different than that. Your goals will shift, they will change, project them out far enough so that you actually have a chance of completing them, but not so far that you're not necessarily going to be the same person when you get there. That's my advice. Let me know what you think. As I said, in the show notes, you're going to find a link to the Discord server. You can chat it up there with me. Send me a message via Anchor. You could also find a link to my Patreon if you want to support the podcast. That would be amazing. Another way to support the podcast is to share it with people. Just if you have anybody who is interested in business or the arts and might want to listen to a podcast, send them my way, and I'll talk to you soon.